So, welcome back to another REFSIX video where we're going to go through the end of our seasons. And what better way to go through our season is by getting my co-host Dan Durso here. So, we're going to go through our seasons on our REFSIX stats, talk about the games that we remember the most, our memorable points of the season, potentially our low points. This isn't going to be anything like last year where I cried. No tears this year. But, we're going to start through that. So, first things first, Durso, you have a coffee in front of you. How do you take your coffee?
Strong and black. That's the way that coffee should be. No milk, no sugar, no nonsense.
No. Unlike me, which is a pumpkin spice latte. So if you're ever thinking about getting coffee, check out Horsham Coffee in the link in our description. They've been very kind and sponsored us this week. And as you all know, that we love coffee here at REFSIX HQ. So mine's a pumpkin spice latte and Durso's is a long black. So cheers to you.
Cheers.
So Durso, how did you find the season in general? Like thoughts and feelings?
Overall, a successful one.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a long one, and I feel like a break is really needed during like the off season. So it was a good season, but a long season.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll cover the off season in a podcast later on down the line, so that'll be released in a couple of weeks, I'm sure, when we're deep into off season. But now it's time to look back and reflect, really. So I've gone onto the REFSIX app. Yeah, I've gone on filter and then filtered it by season. So I completed 54 games this year. That's an average of 5.13 a month. 34 middles, 15 lines, and 5 fourth officials. How did you go?
So I had 61 games.
Yeah.
Similar kind of, or I say similar kind of number. A few more, but yeah, very similar in terms of that ballpark. 35 middles, 18 as an assistant, and 8 as a fourth official. So a bit of a mixed bag, but yeah, predominantly the middles. Just a long season, but a good season.
Yeah. Amazing. So the highlight for me was probably doing a playoff final. The quarterfinal of the Senior Cup was good, and I have to clang this one again, is the quarterfinal of the Vars. Probably my 3 big highlights in terms of matches officiated. They gave me real pride. The quarterfinal of the Vars was probably the highlight. What a mad experience.
Yeah.
You'd have seen the weekly vlog.
Being told to sit down.
Yeah, being told to sit down. The day was great. The atmosphere was great. It just came off with a real buzz about it. And I know it's only a fourth official, but I've got a real buzz off that. After what had felt like a difficult period, obviously starting as a level 3. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I think similar to you, had a few games to highlight. I was lucky enough to be involved in a Sussex Senior Cup semi-final, so that was really enjoyable. That one went to penalties actually as well, so bit of an opportunity to use a feature within the REFSIX app that I hadn't had a chance to use before.
Oh, the kicks from the penalty mark feature.
Yeah, so
nice.
That was really positive, and that actually went really well in terms of how I was able to record it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was lucky enough to get an Isthmian semi-final as well in terms of the playoffs. And that was good. That was a tough game, but an enjoyable one. And so those are kind of my personal highlights in terms of kind of some big games to have been involved in towards the end of the season, which is always nice.
Yeah, no, great. And obviously we need to be honest about this, and this is one of the things that I've tried to resonate with people is honesty. And low points in the season for me personally was maybe realistically the first 3 or 4 months of being a 4. I couldn't find my feet. Got battered by an assessor, and rightly so as well. I missed the yellow card. There's no one else to blame but me. But real low point thinking. I had imposter syndrome. I had just a real down negative points until probably Boxing Day fixture. I was at Handworth Villa, I think it's called, and that really seemed to turn the tables in terms of feeling like that. But for a good couple of months, I felt like I just couldn't find my feet.
I think I had a similar situation where I was fortunate enough to be promoted to level 3 mid-season the season before, so about 6 months before yourself. And being in mid-season, I felt like I had the back end of the season where I was promoted in the middle of it to find my feet. So maybe mid-season promotions in that way is a little bit more positive sometimes than an end-of-season promotion, because you have to really hit the ground running at a brand new level when you get promoted at the end of the season going into another one, whereas a mid-season almost gives you a free final third of the season to find your feet and get into it and maybe not have to worry about that imposter syndrome kind of towards the start of the new season. So can definitely see what you mean, but maybe from a different perspective of a mid-season promotion as opposed to end of season.
Yeah, no, and things are tough, mate. Things can be tough in refereeing. Battered on the line, battered in the middle, from the crowds as well.
Battered as a fourth official.
That was a fourth official, just get battered everywhere we go. But you know, highs for me coming off Christmas. Like I said, for me, the Hanworth Villa game was a turning point for me. Hanworth Villa Chertsey. It's on my app now. I put a little screen up. This was the game for me that was a real turning point. And I look back at my stats and think that was a turning point in terms of starting refereeing well, more confidence in myself, and then my observer mark seemed to pick up. You know, that confidence really came, and that was probably for me, you know, the real turning point in my season. But what about you? Highs? There's obviously one big one.
In terms of
like a high for the season,
I suppose, yeah. So I'll come to that in a second. But I think in terms of one of the things I've talked about with my coach is that I've been on a bit of a roll refereeing wise lately. Is how I felt. So I felt like I've kept a positive kind of vibe going throughout the whole season. So since that mid-season promotion from 4 to 3 in January 2022.
Yeah.
That's I've kind of just pushed on and kicked on from there, thankfully. Whilst I don't feel like I've had much of a breather or much of a break since then, and this summer's going to be nice, as you say. We'll come to discuss that at another time. But I do feel like I've just progressed and grown from strength to strength, and I've just refereed with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, nice.
Which I think ultimately has helped me relax more.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's helped me to just enjoy the game more, and I'm getting more out of it by doing that. So not that I wasn't enjoying it beforehand, but I just really think that I'm in a very good place with refereeing at the moment, and that was really positive. And I think that was reinforced by what you've touched on, in that I was very fortunate enough to be promoted to Step 1 assistant referee.
So if anyone doesn't know, that's refereeing on the National League? Assistant referee on the...
Yeah, so operating as an assistant referee on the National League and Premier League 2, so Premier League reserve kind of fixtures, or under 21s Premier League games. So
great, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm absolutely delighted to have achieved it. It's a lot of hard work, and in terms of a lot of hard work to get there, but a lot of hard work still to continue as well, to stay at that level and hopefully keep progressing. But it was certainly the highlight of my season. Yeah,
so you know, great in terms of highs and lows of the season. Not too many lows as well, which is great in terms
thankfully,
of... Yeah, thankfully, like the lows were... You know, within our control, really. I think like we didn't hark on about not getting a cup final. They're out of our control. You know, we've through the years been very good at what's in our control. And if there's any advice out there for anyone, it's control what you can control. You can't control if you get a cup final or not. You can't control if you get the big final appointments at the end of the year. You just keep going. So yeah, great to hear the positives and stuff as well.
Cheers.
But what I want to dive into is me and Durso compete a lot. I would say we're quite competitive people.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I don't think I'm going to win this one though. So if we go on to the REFSIX stats, press distance, and then break it down again. So if you go up to filters and then for match, and then tick off assistant, because we don't care about fourth officials because you don't do anything, and then press apply. I want to see how far you've actually run this season. So
my total distance this season as a referee, right?
Yeah.
So as a referee from games in the middle is 339.13 kilometres.
I'm 311.
Wow. Okay.
But I think you did a little bit more. I think you done a couple.
I did a few more minutes than you, yeah.
So the average distance for me is 9.15.
Okay, so my average is 10.16.
Cool.
So double figures as an average. So I'm channeling my inner John Wilkes from what he used to do with running around like a headless chicken, to be honest. So,
I'm just position better nowadays. That's what it is.
Yeah, I'm out of position all the time, so that's why I'm covering so much.
But it's interesting, like looking at my stats here, like average distance in the first half is 4.5, 4.54, and then in the second half is 4.6. So I'm tend to be running a little bit more in the second half, probably to try and close the game off a little bit more, but which is unusual. I thought I'd have done more in the first half to get into the game.
Yeah, see, that's what I've actually done, and I've got the opposite from myself. So I've got an average of 5.3 in the first half and slightly less in the second half, 5.26. So I think that what that is I've found one of the trends throughout my season was that I found it a little bit difficult to gauge exactly where I needed to be positioning wise to start the game. It took me maybe the first 20, 25 minutes, and then for the second half of the first half, I was back into a better position, not invading players' space. So maybe I was having to cover more distance to get out of the way a bit more often in the first half.
Yeah.
And then my lesser distance in the second half is because I'm not in the way anymore, so I haven't got to move quite as much.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, to be fair. And, good to look back and have anything.
100%.
So my top matches, I know what yours is coming and I'm already worried. I did 11.3k, which was the opening game of the season, which was Lancing 7. Actually, I lied. That was on the 1st of January. The opening game of the season was Lancing, Beckingham.
Beckenham, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 11.3, and then the rest are in the tens, which is great. So go on then, do the damage. What have we got?
Interesting. So your top one was 11.3.
Yeah.
Okay.
3.8.
I don't want to crush any egos here, but all of my top 5 are higher than 11.3. Sorry
I'll
about
have
that. So my highest being 13.16. Luckily, that's not actually a game that went to extra time. In all fairness, there was a fair bit of added time played at the end of each half. So in terms of actual playing time,
Yeah.
we're probably talking 115 minutes, maybe 110. But simply because of like some injuries and stuff like that. But also because that was the Isthmian playoff semi-final that I did, and in those kind of games, not to say that for other games you don't have to do this, but obviously in a game like that,
You got to get everywhere.
every single minute counts, and you've really got a nail on the added time. So obviously the extra bit of added time definitely helped with the distance for that one.
Yeah, fair. No, fair play. That's some stats. So if anyone can beat 13.16k, let us know in the comments, because if you can, that will crush somebody else's ego today, not just mine. But it's interesting looking back at all these, because you look back at the thing and you can remember exactly the game. You know, here are Hamwell Town versus Chertsey on Boxing Day. You know, the game I said that changed everything for me in terms of my season. It's nice to look back at. But I think this is where I'm going to find something in the stats to beat him. Speed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might beat me on this one.
Yeah, so this is still refereeing, of course. We can break it down for assistance, but refereeing has been our bread and butter this year, I'd say. So we'll just stick to the refereeing stats. So if we click speed at the top, scroll along, speed.
There we go.
I actually don't think you're going to beat me either. So I did a total of 623 low sprints, 689 medium sprints, and 57 high sprints throughout the season. Obviously, the breakdown of high sprints is anything over 25.1 kilometers an hour. So yeah, come on then, do the damage.
So my low was 892.
Cool.
My medium was 938, and my high was 70, which is news to me because I didn't think I could sprint above 25.1k in the first place. But quite happy with that. But again, maybe my numbers are slightly higher than yours because again I've done more games. So
that's fine.
I think if we did the same amount of games and we averaged it out, I think you'd be ahead of me on this one with your speed.
Well, you must have left on in the car.
Shambles.
But also, like, interestingly, is there something that we worked on? I especially worked on it in pre-season as well. Like, if I compared my stats from last year, definitely sprinted more, running less, which is something that we discussed on the podcast last year. Is that something you've trained a little bit more for?
So one of my main focuses for the season has been a match day -1 session.
Yeah.
So getting that speed session in the day before a game, maybe say 24 plus hours before kickoff, to kind of prepare and prime the legs and the upper legs muscles, the quads and the hammies, and that kind of makes your legs feel better on the day of the game, rather than resting before the day of the game. You actually feel like you've got your legs ready, and that's probably something that's definitely helped with getting my legs ready for the sprints that are needed in the game. 'Cause more often than not, the modern game of football, when the higher you go, it's more just around sprint repeatability, getting from one end of the pitch to the other as quickly as you possibly can because of the speed at which the modern game's played at. So that was definitely a big focus for me this year, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So if you want any of these stats, and you can chat through with your mates like me and Durso just have, hit the link in our description, and if you use the code YouTube when you check out via the website, you'll get yourself an exclusive discount as well. But that is the end of our review. Overall, successful season?
Very successful, yeah, and shameless plug, but definitely helped by REFSIX.
Yeah, no, I agree too. And it's just looking back, I think, the memories of looking back, and, with the new update, I use it differently to you. I use it for everything: goals, cards, substitutions, everything. You don't explain how you use it.
No, so I'll do some post-match admin rather than doing everything during the game itself. But I'll record goals, and obviously the timer that I've already talked about in previous podcasts and stuff like that, and how useful that is. That's great. But yeah, generally I will just record goals, and my post-match admin will include kind of cautions, any red cards or anything like that. And then obviously the stuff that automatically gets generated, like the sprint speed, like the distance covered and stuff like that, is really, really good as well. But yeah, most of my REFSIX admin is actually done post-match.
In the changing room?
I'll mainly actually maybe do it when I get home, at the same time as when I have to submit my misconduct report. It just makes sense to do all that admin at the same time. So yeah, I'll do most of it afterwards. Not to say to put anybody off doing all of it if they want to, like you say you do. But personally, I just prefer to do it. But that's the beauty of it, is that you can use it as much or as little as you want.
Yeah, well, I think I spoke to you about misconduct. I know we were going to close up, but I think this is quite important. Like, looking at my misconduct now quickly, I gave him 19 yellow cards for delaying the restart this year. Like, how high is that, realistically?
That's quite high. I mean, what you said you did, 54 games?
Yeah, so I'm giving out one every other game, basically, one every 2.5 games, which is, I've given 115 yellows this season, 71 foul tackles, 19 C4s, 8%. You know, like, 8% is fine, but like I said, I think that looking back, and am I dealing with those situations too quickly?
Maybe
you know,
player management.
Yeah, exactly, and that's something to look at in the stats
for next season.
Yeah, exactly. Like going forward, looking at try and reduce that number. Maybe, yeah, like you say, man management a little bit more, and that's the beauty of looking back. So yeah,
good.
Yeah, successful season. Yeah,
very successful.
Lovely stuff.
Happy days.
So that has been this week's weekly vlog, and the final one of the season before we go into what will be pre-season / off-season, 2 separate things, and you'll understand why. So the next time you'll see me and Durso will be the off-season podcast. So thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you at the next REFSIX video.